The near-death experience. A phenomenon as old as life itself. A state where an individual temporarily steps out of their physical body and upon understanding and observing the world outside the body, returns back to the body. These are travelers who have returned from that world, bearing news for us. Now, it's time to saying and listening. I traveled to Ivory Coast in Africa in 1999, where malaria was a common disease. Malaria is a deadly disease and is treated there like a common cold, but if not treated properly, it can be fatal. When I was returning to Iran, a friend told me that since malaria is prevalent in Iran, if I exhibit symptoms of this disease upon my return, I should see a specific specialist in tropical diseases. I arrived in Iran and showed the doctor my condition. Some of the medications I needed were not available in Iran, but they quickly arranged for them for me. During this time, my weight had decreased, and the dosage of the medication was too high for me, leading to an overdose. As malaria patients improve, they hear certain sounds. I, too, heard these sounds and thought my illness would soon be cured. However, the sounds were different this time. I felt like there were no longer veins in my hands, and I couldn't even speak. My family informed the doctors and nurses around me, who connected me to a machine and realized my condition was critical. They were transferring me to the ICU, and at one point, I felt as if I left my body. I felt my skin, blood, and veins but was completely detached from these body parts, floating upwards. It seemed like I was 2 to 3, maybe 4 meters above the ground. I felt light, not scared, but rather amazed as I didn't know what was happening. Next, I saw myself being carried by nurses. It was like watching a curious series as they moved me without me having control of my body. At that time, when they were taking me inside, someone called my name, not audibly but more as if it was in my mind. As I observed the nurses, when I turned my head towards a sound, I found myself in a green field. The hospital surroundings vanished into that lush green space. Every detail of the hospital disappeared, and I found myself in that space. I was in a very green and beautiful field. The space was exquisite, with a moist and pleasant atmosphere. I could see molecules and cells. Everything was identifiable, as if every entity there had a distinct identity and personality, already familiar to me. It was fascinating because when I tried to touch a tree, my hand became part of the tree trunk. Only when I moved my hand could I realize it was mine. My movement was not physical, not fast. It was more like transferring to a different place by just willing it. No need for flying or physical motion. Everything was under my will. While enjoying the trees and plants, suddenly I heard a noise coming from a mountain. I decided to be there and instantly transported there. I entered a cave in the mountain where a column of light resembling a tree trunk was present. Its diameter was so great that several people needed to hold hands to encircle it. As I approached, I saw the column shimmer like a fountain, emitting light that was not fire but had rings and emanations resembling flames without burning. One truly needed to experience that to grasp the descriptions. I raised my head and saw the column stretching beyond sight. As I moved closer, I noticed it being transparent, yet not entirely clear like glass where you see one side but not the details behind it. Inside the column, there was a large population moving forward, welcoming me, then heading towards the center, upwards, and being replaced by another crowd. I recognized some individuals there, even those I hadn't met in my life, like my grandfather's 53rd grandfather. I felt close to them even though we had never met, making me feel really good. This is a rendition of a vivid experience that you might have encountered, sharing your journey through different realms. I felt that if I entered that column, I would ascend along with them. Happily, I walked towards it, as if lifting a curtain to enter. As soon as I extended my hand, I was abruptly pulled back. It felt like a rope tied around my waist, guiding me along a path. Suddenly someone pulled that rope, and my body was bent backward. As I was drawn back, I saw myself on the hospital bed. I heard the nurses saying, "He's back." Opening my eyes, I saw them above me. If I'm honest, I must admit I was not happy to return to the hospital. I wanted to go back to where I was. I returned back there, not to the cave but to that same field. There, I saw a magnificent horse with 2 wings. It could raise and fold its wings, each detail visible, including the strands of its mane. The horse had a majestic neck, a white coat, everything visible in intricate detail. I leaned toward its neck, feeling fantastic. I circled my hand around the mane to mount the horse. It felt as if the horse had come for me. As I attempted this, I suddenly heard a voice saying, "Hey." The horse abruptly shook its head, freeing its mane from my grasp, galloping away, and I found myself back in the hospital. A week after this experience, my father and brothers came to me from Hamadan to Tehran, but my mother, who was in Tabriz, didn't join as they hadn't told her the severity of my illness, only that I was hospitalized. My mother mentioned dreaming about my grandfather. She saw him in her dream, telling her not to worry about your son. He recounted how he prevented me from mounting the horse, causing it to flee. This detail distinguishes my experience from a hallucination or fantasy. My mother had no knowledge of my experience, and I didn't disclose this story to anyone for a long time. After she narrated her dream, I shared my experience with others. This experience is one of the experiences of near-death individuals. Over 100 experiences will be published on this channel. To hear more experiences, subscribe to my YouTube channel.